into the doldrums of summer, and so today we cover the 3 greatest performances of the Birdie Me era. No, I'm kidding. We're talking about transfers. This is the ArsenalVision Post-Match Podcast. My name's Elliot Smith. You can block me on Twitter, Yankee Gunner. Yeah, there are days when I'm like, what in God's name are we going to talk about? And we go deep. We have done some really bizarre episodes on nothing. I would say some of our best podcasting may have been during the stoppage of football in the COVID era, when we continued to podcast at the same frequency. But there was not a lot to talk about and not a lot going on in people's lives. But today we do not need to cover the Birdie Me era, because today we got all the Bombas. And you have to be careful about saying that in this particular political, global geopolitical environment, because all the Bombas is a scary thing to invoke. But thankfully, I am simply talking about transfer news that has broken. So before I tell you about that, let me just say Clive will be back from his holidays at the end of the week. So we've got some Clive stuff next week. I am sure we will knock out some scouting videos. Of course. Tomorrow, though, over on Patreon, we will have a very special episode about Cristhian Nørgaard, is what I'm reliably told is how you pronounce that. Nørgaard. But I got to level with you. There's no way I can do that, man. There's no way anyone's going to let me get away with that. So please, someone confirm if it is Nørgaard. I'm going to call him Norgaard. That's what I'm going to call him. Cristhian Nørgaard. We're going to have the Brentford expert on. We're going to go deep on the Norgaard. Now I'm in the shit. Going to go deep on Norgaard from the Brentford point of view. We'll also probably talk about stuff like, is Mbemo going to help United? Is Damsgaard maybe their best player and the player they most want to hold on to? Losing Frank and what he might do for Spurs, which is hopefully the same as what everybody does for Spurs. Fail hilariously. We'll see. So we've got all that coming up. There's transfer dailies every single day over on Patreon. I don't think there'll be one today because I think this is going to suffice as the transfer daily. So patrons, I'm sorry, but we're going to be talking about all the same stuff in this episode. Would love to have you over there. AVP50 is the new code. The old code expired and they didn't tell me, so I apologize to anyone who tried, but AVP50 gets you 50% off the first month. So that's a nice, easy way to have something literally every single day this summer. But we're not just doing the transfer dailies. We have history pods. Tim did one this week. He's doing one next week. We have scouting videos. We have Phil's transfer bonanza, and hilariously, in Phil's transfer bonanza, where we covered more than 30 players, 2 of the players we've been strongly linked with today, we didn't even cover. That's how wild today and yesterday has been. There's so much transfer news to get to. I can barely contain myself. But I will contain myself long enough to introduce and welcome back Phil Costa. Hello, Phil Costa.
Hello, mate. Are you ready? I see you've been drinking your coffee, adrenaline up the wazoo, caffeine flowing through the bloodstreams. It's exciting. We have liftoff in the transfer window, which hasn't really been the case for about 3 weeks now. But today it was just like bang, 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 Orn bombs, fab bombs, mock bombs. I'm ready to talk about it. There's a lot of cool stuff happening. Yeah,
is motivational speaker Matt Foley. I've been locked in the basement drinking coffee and chain smoking for the last 4 hours, and I live in a van down by the river. If you've never seen that skit, by the way, check it out. It's absolutely hilarious. Have you ever seen the Matt Foley skit?
I have not seen that skit.
Oh, man, it's so good. It's Chris Farley at his absolute best from Saturday Night Live. Look it up. Just Google van down by the river and watch that sketch. It's hilarious. I want to say Christina Applegate's in it, and maybe Christian Slater, and they can't stop laughing. They're trying so hard not to laugh at him. He's at his absolute best. Anyway, another story for another time. So yeah, let me just ask you, psychologically, it's been a summer where people have kind of been. You even said, I think on a recent pod, it was the GIF of "Come on, do something." The stick figure poking the stick at the lump, saying "Come on, do something." Did you ever expect we'd have a 24-hour-ish period of doing this much something, and so much of it so unexpected?
I always knew we were going to do something, but I didn't expect everything to be happening all at once. And this is very typical Arsenal, because I think they know that I write transfer profile pieces for Arsblog. And they did it in January 2023 when we signed Trossard, Jorginho and Kivior in the space of about a week, where I nearly burned the tips of my fingers trying to write 6,000 words across 3 players. And now they've done it to me again. So obviously they had me sitting on my arse all of June. Zubimendi's been ready to go, and now it's Norgaard, Mosquera. There's been links to Eberechi, Eze. So the Mac is going to get its full worth, I think, over the next few days. But yeah, I knew we were doing something, because there was no way we couldn't be doing something. But I definitely didn't expect all of this to happen now. But I'm happy it is, because what have I spoken about with you about Arsenal doing their business quickly. And that's what they seem to be doing. So I cannot complain at all. Arteta's back from holiday. So, yeah, we're all in. We're all in on the Bombers. And also, I missed out the Hand of Arsenal Bombers.
Yeah.
That is just like what's happened there? Who is Hand of Arsenal?
Hand of Arsenal
He's
has
getting
gone
credit from everyone.
Yeah, he's gone from being sort of a niche, hipster Arsenal online personality that the real ones knew was the ITK you looked for at times of need, to now being name-checked by Fab and Ornstein. So a glow-up and a half for Hand of Arsenal. Kudos to him. Can I ask you, is your favorite thing, it's not a transfer window until you get some ridiculousness. Do you feel good about the fact that before all these bombas started dropping from legit sources, we did get some craziness? I think it peaked with the Mykonos barber telling people via DMs that Sesko, whose hair he had recently cut, is soon going to be going to Arsenal. That combined with who Sesko is following on Instagram, I mean, that was a vintage transfer window day yesterday when we got Instagram followings and Mykonos barber updates. Was that a highlight for you?
It is a highlight. It's always a highlight because Arsenal Twitter especially seems to thrive in these moments. We've had Abu Dhabi at the mosque. We've had Gabriel cloud formations or analysis, when they're analysing, these are North London clouds at 7:30 p.m. in the summer. And, this is what makes us Arsenal fans. So I'm really glad that we've kind of got these out of the way. We've had some following stuff. We've had some barber stuff. I'm sure there'll be some security dog stuff at some point. Or has there already been that? I think there was the security dog stuff. Yep. Oh, yeah, because Reece Nelson and Ben White.
Gyökeres was following a security dog firm that I want to say 2 Arsenal players use. Yeah.
So what next? A tattoo artist in Lisbon coming forward? A Slovenian rabbi?
I don't know, builder. Yeah. Yeah. So he built Sesko's home in Leipzig, and he's been asked to bring marble stones to Highgate. Yeah, I don't know, man.
And what's marble in relation to the marble halls?
Oh my God, that's it. It was so obvious. It was right there all along.
Find the connection, guys. Find the connection.
Should say we also got the breaking news that the potential future mayor of New York, Zoran Mandani. Gosh, I don't know why. Every time with the names. Zoran, a listener to the Arscast, and not bitter. But Zoran, if you're listening and you want to get in touch and let me know that you are a listener, I mean, I don't want to make you feel bad, Zoran, but I'm actually a former New Yorker, and Andrew has never been a New Yorker. In fact, every time Andrew goes to New York, the first thing he does is go to an Irish bar. So, me, first thing I do, slice a pizza. That tells you all you need to know. Okay, enough of that. Let's get into what's actually happened. We spent a lot of time celebrating the transfer window, doing transfer window stuff. We're going to break down really, I think, the 3 big pieces of news. And Arsenal have been credibly linked in the last 24 hours with Eberechi as a Cristhian. Is that how you say that? Cristhian?
It's just Cristhian.
Cristhian Mosquera. And
Cristhian.
And Cristhian Norgaard. So Cristhian squared there. I think the way I want to do it is in order probably significance and excitement. So I'd say Eze, then Norgaard, then Mosquera. And there has been, I think, some division among the reactions, especially to the latter 2, and in particular Norgaard. So I think we're going to have a pretty meaty discussion that we can have there. But let's start with Eberechi Eze. And I can give you a few of the things that broke. Tom Canton, who's been on this program and a friend, reported Eberechi Eze is a player of interest to Arsenal this summer. Like with many positions, Andrea Berta's holistic approach sees multiple profiles considered for key roles, Eze being on that list for the attacking options. Alex Crook said #AFC, have added #THFC, target Eberechi Eze to their list of potential left-wing options, more on that anon. A cheaper option potentially than Rodrigo due to his #CPFC release clause. All the latest transfer stories on @TalkSport. And then Team News and Tickets, who I think has been, it's fair to say, eclipsed by Hand of Arsenal for the sort of niche hipster Arsenal fan ITK, apparently has said Eberechi Eze has given his approval and wants to join Arsenal. So there's enough smoke there to be interesting. There are a couple other people reporting it as well at this point. Now, Phil, I don't want to say I was early on Eze, but as you can imagine, once this link showed up, my mentions were ablaze. I think the interesting thing here is that it seems to be positioned as potentially an alternative to Rodrigo, and that he would be viewed as a left-wing option. That's the interesting thing, because he's certainly not a Martinelli-esque left-wing option. He's not going to hug the touchline and sprint past people. But we know that his style isn't particularly what Mikel wants at left 8. So no matter how excited I am about this player, and I'm very, very excited, are you as excited about him coming as a potential left-wing option?
Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it? Because I love the player. I really, really love Eze. I have for a long time. I think he's always felt like an Arsenal player. I know he was obviously with the club when he was younger. He didn't quite work out here. He was released and he's done the journey from the lower leagues up to the Premier League again. And he's done amazingly well to find his feet again. I've been quite consistent in what I would like from a winger this summer or this season. And it's someone who's willing to take on defenders, provoke them, not be shy to try something and it not come off. I'd much rather they actually do something to try and get us in a better position. Someone with a bit of speed in behind, a bit of running power. So obviously you think of Nico Williams, Rafa Leao, obviously Rodrigo as well. Jamie Gittins can fall into that category, Semenyo. But Ez is an interesting one because for me, he can do both roles, in that he can play in a slightly more central area and he can also play wide. And to be honest, I know he's not a typical winger, but I've seen him play on the left many times and he can easily take people on. He's done it a lot for England. I think even Billy Carpenter posted some small 10-second videos on Blue Sky a bit earlier about him showing him doing just that for England. Obviously, the opposition weren't great. I think it was Latvia and somebody else. But it shows that he does have the potential to cut inside, stand up a defender, come in and fire a shot. And also, what else have we been looking for this summer? And that is a potential left 8/creative 10 who can come in the style of an El Canoes, for example, who can be what we have with Martin Nørgaard, but on the left-hand side. And I think Eberechi is a pretty much nailed-on perfect fit for that. I know he doesn't look like a Mikel 8, especially a left 8, because that's been very consistent in what we've had with Mikel Merino, Kai Havertz, Granit Xhaka. Tall guys, big guys, box crashers, good in the air, good engines. But maybe this is the evolution of what we're trying to do now. And I'm still waiting for a couple of the big boys to come in on this one, because at the moment it's been kind of lower league stuff, not to offend anybody, obviously, because they'll have the sources for their stories and that's absolutely fine. But I'm just waiting a little bit longer for someone of a bit of a higher reputation in terms of their reliability on Arsenal. But either way, it would be a super exciting signing. I've long envied this player for Crystal Palace, and I think Rodrigo, we've spoken about. This is going to be a difficult deal to do. We need a lot to fall in our favour. There's going to be huge sums of money involved. If there is a clause for Eze, and he's just won the FA Cup with Palace, maybe this story has gone as far as it can go. Can we get him out? He's an Arsenal boy. Maybe this is just the club kind of thinking, can we do this quicker and easier? Which I certainly wouldn't have an issue with. So an exciting link, even though I'm just a little bit reserved on it yet, because I'm waiting for a little bit more.
It certainly would allow you in some games, I think, to play Rice, Odegaard, and Eze in midfield. Or if you want to play Zubimendi, Odegaard, and Eze. And I mean, if you then have a talented winger out on the left, you have some really exciting opportunities to take apart low blocks. He takes about 3.5 shots per 90. His dribble success rate is much higher than Martinelli's. So while he's not a super high volume dribbler, he's a much more effective dribbler when he does it. You have to be careful too, because he might be more of a dribbler out on the left wing. You don't get as many opportunities to dribble when you're playing midfield, which is mostly how he's used for Palace. He does have a bit of that languid style that can lead you to think, oh, he's not an off-the-ball duel winner like, Mikel demands. But I don't think that's true. When I've watched him, I think he seems very engaged. He works hard for the team. Similar things, by the way, were said about Olise, right? That he was casual. right? He has that casual attitude. Was it against United? He scored an absolutely stunning free kick and just sort of shrugged his shoulders. I mean, that's just Olise's personality.
Yeah, he's really sort of, he's like Cole Palmer, but in a more relaxed, cool way. I think Cole Palmer, you look at him and you think there is a monkey slamming two cymbals together in your head.
I was going to say, you can hear the
Olise's,
sound of the ocean whistling.
yeah, exactly. But I think Olise's cool. He's not really phased by anything, not bothered by much. He's got little quirks in his personality. I agree with you. I think Eze works hard. And also, maybe we just need to get away from this stuff. Maybe we don't need the typical Mikel 8 to come in. We've got enough people who can do that stuff. I mean, we're even signing Cristhian Nørgaard, who's coming in with a strong defensive output. Maybe we can afford to just have fun players in the team. And I've kind of had to rewire my brain a little bit because we've been so into that position being a specific thing, doing specific jobs on the pitch. But sometimes you need fun players who shoot and score, and I'm really open to that idea because I think it's something we really lack. So either way, I wouldn't complain at all if he was coming in to kind of do that dual role between central half space and left side.
He'll be 27 in a couple of days, which means critically he is 26.
He's done. He's finished.
No. It's just he's 26 until he's 27. That's how it works, mate. It is a release clause, so you know what it's going to cost. Now, from what I've read, there apparently, and again, to your point, this isn't coming from the absolute tier one, take it as gospel reporters, but I still think credible reporting has been done to say that there may be an opportunity to pay that release clause in installments as part of the release clause. It's sort of a weird way to report that, but if that's the case, that
what's it
obviously
been
helps.
Rumored at 68 60 million.
Yeah, I think it was 60 million.
That's cheap.
Well, let me ask you this, though. If this is a case of Eze or Rodrigo, do you have a strong preference? Because I think there's some people that will say Rodrigo's clearly the better player, and I don't know that I believe that. I think Eze is a phenomenal player who has done it in the Premier League. But I do think Rodrigo is a cleaner fit for left wing, just in terms of he was so good there for Madrid over a couple of seasons. He is obviously 3 years younger. Do you have a strong lean on what you do? Let's say both were possible. Would you prefer that we hold out for Rodrigo?
I think Arsenal will have done their research and more or less gauged where they are on either deal. I really like Rodrigo, and I think he's a natural fit for our team on either flank. I think he's at a point in his career where he can move on and become a star somewhere. I think he's ready for that, to kind of move away from the shadows, the rather large shadows of Vinicius Jr. and Kylian Mbappe, who kind of occupy his zones. They take away a lot of the attention. So in that sense, he gives me a lot of Alexis Sanchez vibes, maybe a Mesut Ozil vibe, in that he's coming from a huge club to another huge club, but almost ready to kind of say, look, this is me now. I'm 24, 23, and I'm ready to go. But I look at Eze and I think he is absolutely ready to come in and contribute now. We won't need to wait for him at all. I don't really have a reservation about him at that price, or what is it, 60 million, 65 million? I have no issue with us paying that. And could this situation be a kill two birds with one stone? Because I know people were looking at someone more creative to come into those central areas, Xavi Simons, El Canous, like I said. And maybe with Eze, we can get the wide player and the sort of central player in one. I have to be honest, the reported fees about Rodrigo at the moment are giving me a few scaries. I think he's a really good player, but as you get towards 100 million euros, I just worry a little bit. That is maybe heading towards the maximum of what I would be comfortable spending when it comes to Rodrigo, not to mention his wages, which I imagine would be large.
Yeah, probably in that 300,000 range. I mean, the thing that's weird is you'd be paying top of the market pricing for a player coming off his worst season at Madrid, and we think that's because he had to play off the right and they were a little dysfunctional in terms of the dynamics in the team and the attack. But coming off his worst Madrid season, and at a time when it seems he's surplus to requirements there and they'd probably be happy to sell. So my instinct is, if you're willing to ride it out and you're willing to be patient, that price probably comes down to a nice, comfortable level. Real Madrid don't spend a lot on players because they tend to steal them, like they did with Trent and maybe preparing to do with Konaté, by the way. but they also don't hold your feet to the fire on selling prices too. I think it's one of those things that if a player wants to come to Madrid, he has to help orchestrate his way there. And if a player wants to leave Madrid, they tend to leave Madrid. If I think about the Ozil price, it wasn't outrageous. I mean, for us at the time, it was a big fee, and maybe I'm forgetting things, but I don't think Real Madrid are big, high price sellers because, like I said, again, the best players want to be there and the players they don't need tend to leave. It feels like the mood music around Rodrigo, to me, Phil, suggests an exit. The rumors, by the way, is that he will be on the bench again for a game kicking off in a few hours in the Club World Cup tonight.
Against Salzburg, yeah.
Yeah. When asked about players who have to contribute this season, Xabi gave a pretty spirited answer, saying everyone will have to work off the ball. Everyone. Mbappe, Vinny, Brahim Diaz, the tea lady, my assistant coaches, a dog. Named everybody except Rodrigo. Rodrigo was the one person he did not mention when he talked about everybody having to work hard off the ball. It doesn't feel like that's heading towards him staying. I mean, I'm inclined to believe that it's Eze or Rodrigo. I cannot believe that there's any world where you'd get both, if you could even fit both of them. Certainly take both if you wanted to give them to me. So could this be a smokescreen? Could this be Arsenal doing a little what I think they did with Gyökeres for the Sesko deal, which is letting Madrid know, hey, we want to wrap things up quickly and we really admire this guy Eberechi Eze. If you want to drag your feet on Rodrigo, be our guest, but we have other ways that we're going to go.
Yeah, potentially. This is all a big game. Every transfer window is just a huge game. And I think maybe with Eze, depending on how serious the level of interest is, if the clause is there and it's not limited to a specific amount of time, like others have been in the past, maybe they're quite happy to park him as a kind of piece of leverage and say, look, we can get him whenever we want. If you're not playing ball with us, we can go and take him. And then there goes your 80 odd million for Rodrigo that could help you sort of restore some funds after spending however much on whoever they've brought in this season. Dean Howson, Mastantuono, these kind of guys. So yeah, it is interesting. I'm quite curious to see what happens. For me, it doesn't feel like a smoke screen because I think we've been interested in Eze before. Maybe even for the last couple of seasons, but for whatever reason, either Palace have stood firm or he hasn't wanted to leave yet, or for various reasons, no one's been fully comfortable to pull the trigger on him. But I look at him, I've seen him play in the Premier League consistently for the last 3 or 4 seasons. He's done an amazing job for Palace. Potentially if Benjamin Šeško's coming in, I see a nice parallel between him and Jean-Philippe Mateta, the kind of the big man to work off, even Kai Havertz as well. So I don't know. I really don't have many reservations about him coming into our team and not being an ideal fit. Yes, he's not a typical winger, but I think he does a lot of typical wingery stuff, just in a slightly different way. So either way, it's a really exciting link. I think it's now or never for him. If he's genuinely serious about moving and upping his level and really trying for trophies and silverware, it needs to be now. And the fact that they won the FA Cup gives him a nice exit route. There's obviously that memory. He'll leave there forever.
Yeah, I was gonna make fun of you for a minute because you're like, he needs to leave Palace to get silverware at Arsenal. There are going to be a lot of people pulling you up on that one.
Major pieces of silverware, i.e. Premier Leagues, Champions Leagues. Yeah. Not to say that the FA Cup isn't a major piece of silverware. The ones that we're
swimming in currently.
Yes, but I don't think it's as awkward a fit as some people have made out. But again, I'm just weary that this is how Berta has been operating over the last few weeks, and that there's been a few names coming out, the whole pitting people against each other. We're going for 2 or 3 options at once. So that is where my main reservation lies. And I think Rodrigo remains the primary target, but I don't know. I look at Eze, look at the clause, look at his age. I think he works for us, and I would really love him here, to be honest, if we can't pull off Rodrigo, or if the price gets crazy, for example.
He's definitely one of those fantasy players where out of the blue, when you least expect it, he pulls out something really extraordinary. He has that in him. And I just don't think we've had enough of that. And, you can say Saka can do it. Of course he can. And we have other players. Odegaard, certainly before this past season, was doing it at times. But you know what I mean, right? Someone who uses just this little extra special bit of technical quality and has a willingness to try sometimes the spectacular which I don't think we always have the players that want to do that. They do it by the book, and they do it really well. He does things that are not in the book, that are, not in the pages of Mikel's book, and that could be exciting. If you told me it was going to be Eze over Rodrigo, of course I'd be thrilled. I mean, look, at this point, everybody knows how highly I regard Eberechi Eze, and I really was beating the drum for him being an Arsenal target in prior windows, or that he should have been. I find myself in this weird position now where I somewhat think Rodrigo still might be the slightly better, clean fit for what we need at this point. But going with the Premier League proven guy who's turning 27 and has the quality as I have, I would be absolutely thrilled with him, over the moon with him. Do you suspect that targeting players of this caliber, like an Eze, like a Rodrigo, means that there could be legitimacy to some of the light rumors that have been out there about a willingness to sell Gabriel Martinelli? Because all the noises were that we were going to just give Leo a pay rise. That doesn't make any sense if we're bringing in Eze and keeping Martinelli. You know what I mean? You don't buy Eze or Rodrigo, keep Martinelli, and then also give a pay rise to Leo. I think it's two of those three that are going to be here next season. So do you think that this is maybe heralding an exit for Martinelli, and that might explain the amount of spending we look like we could be doing?
Potentially. At this moment in time, I struggle to pinpoint an obvious buyer. I don't think Barcelona need to be interested in him. Maybe Bayern Munich. I mean, they need a winger, I think. But again, I don't see him as an obvious fit there. I think they might try to take somebody else or stay within the Bundesliga, for example. I know they were trying a late move for Jamie Gittins, but I think Chelsea have that one wrapped up. So honestly, if we sold Martinelli and brought Eze in, I would worry a little bit that him and Trossard are maybe the jinky, playmakery wingers, and we've already needed players to be able to stretch defenses and go in behind, and then we're just selling one to bring in Eze, who's not really that guy, even though he can do it. So I would have a slight concern about just our general level of profiles and how balanced we are up front. But if it's Martinelli out and Rodrigo in, that makes, again, a lot more sense to me. But I would be way more inclined to be able to keep Martinelli and sell Trossard. But all the noises that have been coming out from his camp and the club is that they're negotiating. There's been talk of a pay rise. There's been talk of an extension. So it doesn't really sound like someone who's edging towards the exit door. Look, things can happen. Bids can come from nowhere. Could Saudi come back in for Trossard? That essentially forces our hand. What if it's 30, 35 million? I mean, I'd butt your hand off for that. So, yeah, I think there's still, what is it? We're sitting here recording on the 26th of June. There's still so much time for things to happen, for dominoes to fall. Honestly, I couldn't tell you. But I would much rather keep Martinelli than Trossard if that's what you're asking me on an overall level.
Yeah, and I think most people would agree with that. It's just the question of, we really haven't done much selling in the past several years. I want to say our record
last
sale.
year wasn't bad.
Yeah.
Last year wasn't bad with Eddie,
we got
Smith
some good
Rowe
fees
as well,
for the players we sold. But we have not really, since the bad old days of selling, Cesc and Nasri and RVP and stuff like that, we haven't sold anybody that we like a lot. You know what I mean? We've sold players that we were ready to move on, but the way you get a big fee, the way you get 60, 65 million is you sell a player that you're going to be sad to see go. You know what I mean? That is still an important part of the team. And I can't remember the last time we did that. And I'll put it to you like this. If I say to you right now, I want you to make a prediction, crystal ball time. Who are the left wing options for Arsenal when the transfer window closes September 1st? Hang on a second. I just need the timestamp to clip this up and make sure I put this out on all social channels. Okay, good.
Yes.
Yeah, go ahead.
A Phil Bomber, not Phil Costa. Yeah, honestly, I've got a feeling Saudi could come back in for Trossard. That's my feeling. We could finally get this mystical Saudi money that everyone else is getting. I just don't see anyone paying 65 million for Martinelli. I really don't. And that's not to say he isn't worth 65 million, but after a down season, maybe people would just be slightly more reluctant, even though I think the potential is obvious. It just feels like he's stagnated slightly as a player, and we need to find him again and build him again like we did with a Jesus before his knee broke again, or a Havertz that sort of came into his own as a centre forward. So I think if you're looking at people who are primed for sale, I would go for Trossard because of his age, because of the potential Saudi interest that we've had in him before. The negotiations don't seem to be going anywhere. I mean, it's been reported for a long time that he was in these talks, but I haven't heard anything else about it. So maybe that's stalled slightly. So yeah, I would say Martinelli and Rodrigo as our left wing options, and I'd be delighted with that, to be fair.
I'm going to say Rodrigo and Leo. Yeah,
Ooh.
I mean, and it's not my preference. Rodrigo, Martinelli would be my preference, or Eze for that matter. But I still think that's what's going to happen. And one of the reasons is just, I think Leo led us in appearances last season for outfield players or something like that. I mean, not minutes, but he was among our top appearance leaders. Mikel is losing a player we know he loves to put on the pitch in Thomas Partey. And Jorginho was another sort of leader in the group. You know, I know Leo can be thorny. I'm not saying he's a leader in that regard. He's a little spiky emotionally. But this is a player that Mikel really likes to have as an option. I got to play you at 8. I got to play you at 9. I got to play you at left wing. I got to play you at right wing. I think he just trusts Leo to come in and give a really important professional performance. Now, he's crossing that age threshold where we know that he immediately turns into a pillar of salt. That's the only worrying thing. But aside from
in your eyes, yeah.
Well, of course, yeah. Aside from that, though, then I'm like a pillar of baking soda or something. I'm like a pillar of rotting salt. I don't know. But aside from that, and again, I mean, obviously he loves Martinelli too, by the way. I'm not saying he doesn't, but I think he's going to be loath to move on a member of that sort of senior guard of players he just really trusts and relies on in key moments. And I think you can get real money for Martinelli. And I think in order for Mikel to make all the moves he wants to make and Berta to make all the moves they want to make, I think they may have to collect some real money back. Now, could it be Eze and Martinelli? Could it be Rodrigo and Martinelli? It could. And that would be my preference. But I just have this weird spidey sense about Rodrigo and Leo. So I think we can leave that there. But very, very exciting, certainly. And it's at least exciting also that we do seem to be interested in Eze. And Rodrigo certainly seems like he could be on the exit ramp from Real Madrid. And we covered exit ramps in detail on the Transfer Daily yesterday, so I don't need to go into that in any more detail. Let's switch to one that I think is really interesting, but not as exciting to everyone, and a lot more divisive, and that's Cristhian Norgaard. I think this is really important to bear in mind. This is a £45 million midfielder if you're Tottenham Hotspur. If you're Tottenham Hotspur, the price is £45 million. If you're Arsenal Football Club, it's like €11 million or, £9.5 million or in that range. Let me just ask you before we get into the really meaty stuff, give me your potted summary of Cristhian Norgaard, the player, and what you think of him.
I like the player. I have to be honest, I don't understand the frustration or the divisiveness of this deal because I think it's perfect. I think if you're really against it, you're just being difficult or obtuse because it's quite clear what he's coming into the squad to do, and that's be the Jorginho replacement. Zubimendi is the Thomas Partey replacement. Norgaard is coming in to replace Jorginho, who barely played anyway last season because his legs were gone. And I know he cracked a rib towards the end of the year, and that kept him out for a bit longer. But
the pushback there, Phil, though, is he's the Thomas Partey, and I agree with you. I do agree with you. But the pushback would be he's the Thomas Partey replacement in the sense that people had thought our number 6 platoon next season would be Zubi plus Partey, and now it is Zubi plus Norgaard. And there are people that are going to say that is a weaker duo, and it's taking out a very reliable pillar of the team from this season who's played a lot of minutes and been a big part of this team, and replacing it with a guy coming in from outside the Premier League and a guy who hasn't been at Arsenal, while 2 experienced Arsenal leaders are leaving in the same summer. So again, I agree with you. He's the Jorginho replacement. He is not the Partey replacement in terms of the minutes role he'll play. I do think it's only fair to present the other side of the argument so that we can engage with it, dismantle it, and then laugh, throw our heads back and laugh.
I get it, but also you spoke about Arsenal not selling players that they like and that they use a lot, but this is essentially them doing just that, except his contract's running out. So since he's been at the club, how many games has Thomas Partey missed? Maybe over 80? And I think last season, more or less, he had a really good fitness record. I think largely he played well. But I think we can afford to be brave and move beyond him. I think he's increasingly poor in transition, Thomas Partey. I think he makes silly mistakes around the penalty box. I think when he goes lunging in and diving in, he leaves our back four exposed. He's asking for a lot of money. I think Arsenal would have extended him if they could halve his salary, but he's obviously not ready to do that. So why should we maintain someone who's over 30, who's had one reliably fit season, and keep him on the same wage or even more? I just don't understand that. I think we can afford to be brave in this situation. Cristhian Norgaard, yes, he's in that similar 31, 32-year-old bracket, but he's a really good player as well. He's played consistently for a great Brentford team. He's come up with them from, I think it was even League One he joined them, or was it the Championship? I can't quite remember. He's really been a key pillar of this team. He's the captain. He brings experience. He brings a level of physicality to the team. I don't think he'll come in and expect to start every game. He's just a reliable backup, and he's not just doing a job for us. This is a guy who's played consistent Premier League football for the last 3 seasons. So I don't really understand the frustration and the furor around it. I've been ready to part ways with Thomas Partey for a while now. I think he was good last year. I think he played well in parts last season, but all of the mistakes and the lack of physicality and the wages involved with any potential deal have just put me off him. So I think we've been brave to be able to say no to that. I don't exactly know what's happened behind the scenes, because it felt like it was happening for a while and then all of a sudden it wasn't. So something maybe's happened from his side or the club's side. I think Cristhian Norgaard is more than good enough to come in and contribute, to play maybe 1,000, 1,200 minutes across the season, save some legs, be a reliable performer in cup games, in home games against lower league opposition. Obviously for him, it's a great moment to come in and really test himself at the highest level, whether that be playing in the Champions League or challenging for a Premier League title. He ticks the boxes. Really, I don't understand it. He's good in the air from set pieces, which I know Arteta and Nico will love. I don't know. I know there's been some concern about his age, but he still covers huge amounts of distance. His defensive numbers are really good. So, I don't know. It doesn't feel like an upgrade, but it doesn't feel like we're downgrading either. Not to me anyway. I know other people's mileage may vary on that, but I've been of the opinion that we've needed to refresh in midfield for a long time now, and we've done that. So, I really don't have many complaints about this deal at all.
Yeah, they're very, very different players. And so it isn't a like-for-like replacement either with Partey or Jorginho. Cristhian Norgaard is not going to progress the ball in the same way they do.
Though. His numbers aren't bad.
Yeah. No, I'm not regarding them as bad. I think that Partey and Jorginho, that's probably a bigger strength. He is going to win the ball a lot more, though. That's for sure. Only Moises Caicedo registered more successful ball recoveries in the Premier League last season in the middle third than Cristhian Norgaard. Cristhian Norgaard was captain of Brentford, and Thomas Frank has spoken about him in glowing terms. I think he replaces that role of Jorginho as a leader in the group, right?
And people were upset about Jorginho, no? And I was in a very similar camp where I am now with Norgaard, in that this is a really good, experienced player coming into the squad. And Jorginho contributed. He was able to contribute. There were real periods of weeks or months where he was playing well in a good Arsenal team. So, yeah, when we're signing players, I always look at the opposition fans, and they are sad to be losing him. They're really,
they also
really
don't
sad.
understand the fee, because he just signed a new deal through 2027, and this is a very, very low fee.
I think there might have been an agreement somewhere in here to say, I'm going to get you a little bit of a fee so I don't leave for free, but also if an opportunity comes around this summer, I'd like to be able to shake hands with you and leave for a relatively modest 10 to 12 million. That's what
that
it sounds
kind of
like to
gentleman's
me.
agreement working out better for Cristhian Norgaard than it has for Victor Gyökeres. Let's just say it that way. Yeah.
Or Šeško.
Yeah, well, that's fair. So yeah, look, I think during transfer season, every transfer is a chance to have a strong opinion. Jorginho played 700 minutes in the Premier League this past season. I think Norgaard will probably eclipse that, but maybe not by much. The other thing is, I think there's a misunderstanding of the group. And what I mean by that is, it isn't Zubamendi and then, oh God, if something happens to him, Norgaard's all we've got.
Bingo.
We have a £100 million midfielder in Declan Rice that isn't all of a sudden not usable at 6 for some reason. He'd be one of the best 6s in the world if that's where we wanted to play him regularly. Okay, he'd be one of the best anywhere players in the world at any position. That's how highly I regard Declan Rice. So if you want to play Rice, Marino, and Odegaard, or Rice, Kai, and Odegaard, or Rice, Kai, and Marino, right? Or Zubi, Rice, and Kai, you get my point. There are a lot of permutations of how you do this. You could even say, we need some time for Miles Lewis-Skelly, who we will come to in a moment with his re-signing being made official, in midfield a bit here and there. And he plays in midfield. Or Calafiori just, I mean, there are so many ways we may choose to set up that the idea that all of a sudden we could be in a situation where Cristhian Norgaard has to start 20 games in the Premier League for us and we're absolutely screwed, I just don't see it. But oh, by the way, he started 31 games or whatever it was for a very good Brentford team.
34.
34 this past season, is that what it was? 30, 31, yeah. 30 the season before? Yeah, 2,800 minutes, something like that. There's always a world where he starts and he winds up just being very good. There could be a world where the plan is he starts early in the season so Zubamendi isn't under immediate intense scrutiny of having to come in, right off the bat. I don't know. But I think the idea that it's just those two and that's it, end of story, I don't think that's right. I don't think that's accurate.
Would you have preferred to have gone younger?
So I really, really like Lucien Aguemé. We scouted him. I know that doesn't mean much when you watch half an hour of footage of him in a number of different circumstances. Now, we're not just watching YouTube comps. We're watching all of his various actions. I think he's a really fascinating profile. But again, do you want to bring Lucien Aguemé into a situation where he might be playing 700 minutes, where there isn't a clear path for him, and he has to adapt to the Premier League? Or do you want to bring in a guy who will be a leader, because you're losing a leader in Jorginho, who will be a teacher? I mean, one thing Frank said is he's willing to go up to the kids and say, I need more from you. He was willing to go up to Brian Mbeumo, who's the big dog, and say, I need more from you. He's a motivator. He's a leader. I'm sure, obviously, he and Odegaard know each other well, and that will help. So this, to me...
Would they? He's Danish.
Oh, my God, did I just do that? I went
You've
with
just
the guards.
started international beef.
I just put the guards together like an idiot. You're right. Danish, Norwegian. And do they both have the flag? Is it... No. What's the flag
Norway
symbol?
is basically the Danish flag, but with like a blue trim outside
right.
of the...
Yeah.
Close
I get tricked by the blue trim.
They're
No, it's the guard.
boys.
It's just the guard.
Yeah.
A guard. But, as that person helpfully told me, it's Nørgaard. Odegaard is Odegaard. But this is Cristhian Nørgaard. So there you go.
Yeah.
So my apologies to the Danish people. I owe so many apologies to so many people, and we can add the Danes to the list. I apologize to the Danes. So he knows Nick Bentner. Let's put it that way. So he's got that going for him, right? Okay. There. I rescued it. Yeah, look, I think what I would say is this is one of those moves that in the thick of transfer mania gets scrutinized so much. But by November, when he's only playing here or there and he's just not that needed, but he's adding some steel for us to help see out games and he's regarded as a good guy to have in the group and he's not playing that much, no one's going to be uber focused on this, is my belief. But a very good player. I like the acquisition. I like the price. I think it lets us get business done we had to get done. And I regard moving on from party as business we had to get done. I think it's the right move. There's a phenomenon in American sports called the contract season, where players play out of their mind when they know that next contract is on the line.
We Arsenal fans know about the contract year. Don't worry about that. So
yeah. So, I just think really having the confidence that player at 200 grand plus a week into his 32, 33-year-old season is going to give us what we need, I think is a risk we didn't have to take. And I'm glad we're not taking it, frankly. So we look to be now getting the things done that you need to do to just feel the squad's in a good place, because it's Zubamendi and Nørgaard in, It's Partey and Jorginho out. That feels good. And I think it looks like strikers taking shape. But before we get to that, we should tell you how to make your e-commerce site take shape. And then we can get to Sesko. We can get to Nico Williams. We can get to Andrea Berta, who we have to talk about, and Miles Lewis-Skelly. All that still to cover. But obviously, the one thing you want to know is, if you're starting an e-commerce business, maybe you're going to sell footballers. Why don't they have an e-commerce site for that? Just a Shopify site for buying Benjamin Sesko or Rodrigo. Or just make it nice and easy and transparent. We can go on there, see what the price is, see their FB ref stats. You can have some green bars. See, Shopify would make that easy. So maybe we need to get in touch with all the agents, get in touch with all the clubs, and put them in touch with Shopify. But you can use Shopify. You can use it to sell your art, to sell your mugs, to sell your merch, to sell the thing you're passionate about that you want to get out there in the world. And you can do it in a way where your site has the professionalism that makes someone feel really confident shopping with you, but also where you're sold on Facebook and you're sold on TikTok and you're sold on Instagram, all the places you need to show up, right? If you're going to be selling your stuff, it's got to be on Instagram. Well, now it can be, right? Because you're using Shopify and you don't have to know how to do integrations or how to do cart checkout processes or taxes, because they're going to take care of that too. So you can start your business now simply by having a product, a description, and a picture, and let Shopify do the rest. Sign up for your $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/ArsenalVision, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/ArsenalVision and start selling with Shopify today. Shopify.com/ArsenalVision. Doing that too. Tim? No. Clive? No. Phil? Is that enough of that?
Indeed. I feel like Clive's having withdrawal symptoms, not being able to talk about not one, not two, but 3 potential transfers. I mean, he's going to fake food poisoning at some point and just find a mic wherever he is in Spain. It's like, I need to talk about this.
It is pretty funny because, I mean, when he left, there was just nothing to talk about. And he's like, I'm going away at the perfect time. And he's missed the absolute biggest chaos week of transfer news possible. So, all right, I want to talk about Sesko and Nico and Andrea Berta and all that stuff, but we have to talk about Cristhian Mosquera. Mosquera is a player who we heard about a little bit a while back, and then it went quiet. We were linked with Gahey a bit. We're linked with Jarell Hato, and I still think Hato could be on the cards, but I think that's linked more with whether Kivior stays or goes. If Kivior goes, I could see us going really big for Hato, but we did need maybe more of a right-sider. Mosquera can play off both sides, to be fair, but what do you think of Cristhian Mosquera as an option for adding depth to the center back position?
Certainly a good option, an exciting option. I'm quite intrigued about what's happened here, because when the season finished, he was very heavily linked with RB Leipzig, and they were negotiating. It seemed like they'd struck a deal, and then all of a sudden, it seemed like he was going to have a complete U-turn and end up extending at Valencia. And that was most of the noise over the last few weeks as well. I'd even spoken to people close to him, his agents. I've got a really good friend who's very in when it comes to Valencia, and he'd asked around. Funnily enough, I've asked this afternoon as well, and they're still denying it. So that very much feels like the company line. But yeah, I really didn't expect him to be around or available or to be honest, an option for Arsenal, even despite those early links. So maybe I wonder if we've maybe had a little whisper in his ear. Have we promised him something? Obviously, the allure of Arsenal would be very difficult to turn down for any 20-year-old centre-back. But he ticks the boxes, right? And I did like the initial link that we had to Alexandro Ribeiro as well, the Lille defender, a sort of big centre-back, physical, can play both sides, good on both feet. And Cristhian Mosquera is very, very similar to that. You know, he has played both sides for Valencia this season. I know they've struggled a little bit, but they did eventually pick up towards the end of the season. They finished around mid-table, 12th or 13th, when things were looking really bad for them at one point. I mean, relegation was very much on the cards. But this is a good signing. It's something that I felt like we needed in terms of profile. I mean, can he play both sides? Yes. Can he potentially play at right back? Yes. Is he right-footed? Yes. There we go. That's what we needed in this position. He's got some really encouraging and exciting physical attributes. He's very much he's more Gabriel than Saliba, I think, in terms of the way he hunts the ball down. He's willing to anticipate a pass that's coming in from a deeper area. He's willing to jump out of his position to follow people around, whereas Saliba's much more the sweeper. But he can also be measured as well, and he's got very simple distribution off both feet. He's not going to be breaking lines and switching the ball. He's very, I've won the ball back and I'm going to give it to the other people, but maybe that's something he can develop down the line. That's the exciting thing about signing young players, right? Is that you can mold them and shape them to how you want. I don't think he's as good as Dean Howson, but he's probably going to cost 30 million euros less. So you get what you pay for at the end of the day. And I think this does feel like a bit of a market opportunity with him in the final year of his contract. I like it. I like the player. I think he's done well for a struggling Valencia team. He's also played well for the Spanish under-21 side, who were going well in the Euros. So is he going to come in and blow our socks off? Probably not. Is it just smart and sensible squad building with the ghost of Tomiyasu lingering around Sober Realty? Yes. So I think it's really good. There were some rumours as well that Berta wanted him for Atletico Madrid. So maybe there's a relationship there that's been reignited or reinvigorated. Who knows? But it seems to be moving quickly, and we've obviously said all the right things to get him in. So I wouldn't be surprised if this is finished or signed off rather quickly.
Turns 21 tomorrow. 6'2", 172 pounds. If you're into the metric system, 188 centimeters, 78 kilograms. So a big guy. Interestingly, very, very poor aerial one percentage.
I was going to say that.
Aerials one. You know what reminds me of, though?
Saliba.
Yeah. So Saliba.
He sucked in the air.
Yeah, and he's gotten better.
When I watched some Saint Etienne footage, he was awful.
He would dunk under stuff. It was weird. It's like he didn't look at the ball or something. And by the way, I still don't think heading is his strong suit for what it's worth. But you know, he's good at the stuff that we want to be good at. So very high percent ball recoveries, rarely fouls, never sent off, 90% passer, although you're right, not particularly progressive. He's in the 93rd percentile for percent of dribblers tackled, right? So he doesn't get dribbled past at a high rate. So a very clean tackler who doesn't commit a lot of fouls and wins the ball back a lot. And that's kind of what Saliba's MO is, right? Not a big tackler, not a big destroyer in the air, just a guy who takes the ball off you and plays 100 passes at 90%. So I think a really interesting, intelligent move that probably will come at a really nice fee. And I think he's on like 30,000 euro a week. So that's someone you could put on 80,000 pounds a week if you wanted, 60,000 pounds a week if you wanted at 21 years old and see how he develops. Seems really sensible to me. I don't think there's much more that we have to cover. I guess the only thing I would say is I don't think that rules out Joel Hato, who I think is arguably the bigger prospect talent-wise. I want to be careful because I don't know Mosquera that well.
It's not close.
Hato is an elite talent. But again, if Kivior is staying, I just don't see how there's any room at the end for Hato, and it wouldn't make sense for him or us. So, and I think those two have always been linked in that way, because Kivior can play left back, he can play left center back. That's the exact role Hato would come in for. So that's going to be very much a case of one in, one out if it happens. This leads me to want to quickly talk about Berta before we get into Sesko, Nico Williams, Miles Lewis-Skelly, maybe a bit on Konaté. But Andrea Berta, we're trying to learn about him. I think one thing we've learned about Arsenal is just that they've got a pretty good ability to keep some things quiet when they want to. But there is this sense that everybody wants to sum up a director of football, every rumor that breaks. Oh, we lack ambition, or we're indecisive, or we're screwing around, or we don't, why are we negotiating? But actually, when you look at it, linked with Hato, linked with Ribeiro, linked with Mosquera, we're going to get Mosquera. Okay? Party's staying. Nope, he's going and Norgaard's coming in. Right? Linked with Rodrigo. Maybe he's going to come in. We know we wanted Nico Williams. Oh, look, we might have Eze. All those in play. All those very good options. Sesko, Gilchrist. It's Sesko, it's Gilchrist. It's Sesko, it's Gilchrist. Actually, it looks like it's going to be Sesko. And like all along the way and at every stop, it seems clear that we've had a lot of plates spinning. And when you have a lot of plates spinning, one thing that can happen is they can all fall on the ground and shatter and everybody's laughing at you. But in fact, not only are all these plates spinning in the market, but look at the just simplicity and efficiency with which we've gone through contract renegotiations. Doesn't seem like a lot of drama there. The players want to stay. They're signing up. We're getting players to stay. Gabriel's committed. Now Miles Lewis-Skelly's committed. I think the early returns on Berta are that he seems to be able to have a lot of things going on, a lot of irons in the fire, a lot of different targets, and then the ability to execute very quickly when it's time to hit the go button and get it done, whether it's contracts or signings. Now, look, the big thing, striker and wide forward, those aren't done yet. But Zubimendi, Mosquera, Norgaard, Miles Lewis-Skelly resigned, Gabriel resigned, Kepa, and like, it's a lot of business that had to get done being done in a fairly efficient way, and it hasn't ticked over to July yet, you know?
Yeah, I mean, with the contract renewals, I'm sort of reluctant to give him too much acknowledgement or credit, because I think that will have been mostly pushed through by Arteta. I know obviously people have representatives, and James King would have been involved, Tim Lewis would have been involved, other people would have been involved, and I'm sure Berta was involved as well. But I think for those two in particular, Arteta will have been a big driver there. I mean, even Lewis-Skelly spoke about him in his sort of interview with Arsenal.com. But the transfer stuff has been really good so far. I know there was the early initial panic when everyone's signing players and where not, and then there's the Real Madrid stuff of them coming in for Zubimendi, and the Šeško and Gyökeres stuff, which looks very messy from the outside. But I could never get behind the thinking that the club don't know who their number one targets are. I just can't. It's fair enough to have admiration for several different players and negotiations going on for all of their players, but they know who they want. Arteta knows who he wants. So even if it feels and looks a bit messy from the outside, I'm sure there's complete and utter clarity within the club, from Arteta, from Berta, from the recruitment team, about who they want. So this is why I've never been too worried about it, because it would have just been an alarming amount of incompetence to go into this window without clarity on that. So I do think he's done a good job, though. I think you can see this is very much his MO, in terms of, I'm going to put a few players in the press, I'm going to link us with a few guys to sort of figure out the agent, see who's serious about things, see who's not serious about things. Whereas before, under Edu, we felt very structured and methodical. It was one target, we'd sort that, then we'd move on to another target, and we'd sort that, then we'd go on to our third target, where it was very like a sort of step 1, step 2, step 3. Whereas now we're quite clearly very comfortable doing 2, 3, even 4 things at once. I mean, we could confirm 4 signings in the next 2 weeks. It's genuinely at that level. So I think he deserves credit. He only started in April officially, or was it March? Yeah. So more or less he's had 2-ish or 3 months at the club at most. So that is a big change for him to come in. He has to meet new people, settle in with a new culture, new language, even learn about how the club prefers to be run at boardroom level. So there's a lot he's had to deal with personally as well. So yeah, the only way we can truly judge him is at the end of the window. And if we end up with just these 4 players and no left winger and no striker, then that's an issue. But if we get these 4 done, and it gives us a little bit more time to focus on the other 2 positions that we need, I'm sure it will be done. So I'm quietly very confident in how he's been operating, how he's been working with Mikel, and yeah, I'm just curious to see who we're going to be signing tomorrow, basically, because that's the rate we've been going at, one on bomb a day, one signing a day.
Yeah, and I think it's going to be Šeško. I think that one's close. That's just my opinion from the noises that I'm hearing.
It can't fail now. The Barber said it.
The Barber, exactly.
The Mykonos Barber involved. Yeah,
exactly. So I think that one's going to get done. But look, there's this thing that happens where we as fans get very anxious about transfers. We're very nervous, and that's understandable. I think it's easy to forget that the players can get anxious and nervous too. If you're Benjamin Šeško and your agent has said, I'm going to get you to Arsenal, don't worry. I know that's where you want to wind up this summer. I'm going to get you to Arsenal. Benjamin Šeško's scrolling through his timeline, trying to enjoy his Mykonos haircut, and he's hearing like Arsenal very close with Gyökeres now. Gyökeres has moved into first place. Gyökeres is following a guard dog service in England. He's going to be calling up his agent saying, you told me I'm going to Arsenal, and that's not the stuff I'm reading. Are we still okay? Behind the scenes, these guys are talking. They're having conversations. The agents understand they have to deliver for their player. And so, there is a benefit to appearing to be doing a number of different things, and that you can unsettle Leipzig and unsettle Sporting and unsettle the players and their agents such that they have to decide if they think you're bluffing. And I get it. Look, sometimes you lose at that. You lose at poker too, and that can be a case where the agent gets pissed off. I'm going to shop my player around, or the club says you're screwing with us on the fee, so now we don't want to do business with you. Yes, it can go wrong, but I think our panic and our desire to get things done, we just want clarity, right? Don't go for Jokers. Just don't negotiate on the price. Just go to Sesko, pay him everything he wants, pay Red Bull everything they want, and get us the player. Because as fans, that's all we care about, the outcome. But it feels like, at least so far, a pretty good process. We've moved away from an aging midfielder on a big contract. We've gotten in a reliable Premier League player who's going to be good in the leadership group. We've gotten in one of the most coveted central midfielders in Europe who's wanted by other big clubs, and we've had him basically since January, so that's not a Berta thing. We've looked at a couple of defenders and landed on one who fills the exact gap we have, but is still young, and can grow into a bigger role at Arsenal. It looks like, in my mind, we really know what we're doing, and that's a great sign. And, another great sign of that, of course, is the re-signing of key players. And so today, officially, it was announced that Miles Lewis-Skelly is staying, and they did it with sort of a family affair, right? They had all of his, I guess, close personal friends and colleagues and mentors and people who were influence on him and his family there at the Emirates to surprise him. I thought it was a really lovely video that they did. I mean, it's easy to be cynical these days and think all this stuff is just over-commercialized and over-sensationalized and just sign the contract and get about your business. But, this is an Arsenal boy, literally, and you can call him a boy because, I guess technically, legally, he's a man now, but this is someone still a teenager, right? To me, that's a boy, who has grown up at the club, clearly loves it. It's okay to get a little swept up in the emotion of it, I think, Phil. I thought this was a lovely announcement, and I think we have something so special on our hands in this player. And so while we all focus on transfers, we should stop for a minute and celebrate the commitment of one of the biggest teenage talents in football staying at Arsenal and looking like just a lovely, lovely young person who's at our club.
It's amazing news. I really had a tear in my eye watching that because it really emphasized to me how many people are involved in getting a player here. It could be friends, coaches, parents, agents, the amount of people along the way who have contributed a single piece of advice or consistent advice, and him just walking through the Emirates with his grandma, when they walked past the picture of the team and she said, "Oh, Saka's my other grandson," or "Ethan's my other grandson." And it's just such a lovely family feeling. And I always feel proud of Arsenal in how we treat young players, in how we offer opportunities to young players, how over the last 50, 60, even 70 or 80 years, it's been a key theme of what we do here. It's a very important tradition that helps bring us closer to the team and the group and the players. And I just really love the video. And I think, especially in Lewis-Skelly's case as an individual, I was so glad to see him rewarded with a new contract. Obviously, I know we needed to do it, but it was entirely deserved. I in the madness of last season, in the pure exhaustion of every week, the red cards, the suspensions, the decisions, all of that stuff that just generally drained us by the time we got to May. The injuries. I don't think we had a time to really step back and realize what we had with him. This is somebody who didn't even make their debut until September last year. And he came into the team, did an incredible job in a position that has been new to him. Not entirely new, but it's only been part of his Arsenal for about the last 18 months to 2 years. He took every challenge, every step with consummate ease. He shows bravery, personality. I'm just so happy to have him, really. I know we touched on it in our last podcast, but this is the kind of stuff that makes you proud to be an Arsenal fan. And I'm so excited to see where we go with him in the team. And I think just that moment of him and being surprised by his family was so beautiful. And I think that is what the message is here. What's the phrase? Like, it takes a village to raise a child. Mm-hmm. I think you really saw it there. To raise an Arsenal player, a first team player, it really does take a village to do it. And however small or big their impact or influence has been, it's such an achievement to be here, and he deserves it all. He absolutely deserves it all. I'm so impressed with him.
Yeah, and this isn't hype. This is someone who played at the highest level of the game and was one of the best performers against, a club like Real Madrid in the Champions League, for example. The sky's the limit for him. And that, again, as much as transfers are important, and you can't build a great team without adding quality, and especially we know where it needs to be added, striker, winger, sure. The trajectory of your young talent can determine your success as well. If I look at the teams that have really excelled over the years, there's usually one or two, players in there that came up through the club's development system that became an important part of an important era. Well, we could have as many as three. If Ethan develops the way we think, Saka, Ethan, and Miles Lewis-Skelly being an important part of one of the best Arsenal teams of the last 20 years, that's really special. And we should celebrate it. We should celebrate it. And I think not just get so caught up in transfers that we blow by the development of these young players and how special they are. Maybe just a couple of last things here. I saw that Athletic Club confirmed that they met with La Liga to express concern over Barcelona's ability to register new players under financial fair play. As you know, I think Dani Olmo was in purgatory for a while, right?
He was, yeah. And they maybe even could have lost him in January. They had to move some people around, some cash around to even have him registered for the second half of last season. So it's a mess. That club's a mess, and yeah,
they are a mess. And Athletic insists that they will defend their interest and ensure that the rules are enforced. And the only reason I bring this up is, obviously, Mikel's been a huge admirer of Nico Williams. I don't think that's a secret. It's certainly not a well-kept secret. Do you think there's any world where this kind of report will lead to some club trying to go to Nico and some club trying to go to Athletic and say, you saw what happened with Dani Olmo, what almost happened with Dani Olmo. I realize that Barca's your dream, but you can have other dreams as well. And Barca could easily turn into your nightmare given the financial circumstances there. Not to mention with all the players they have. I mean, didn't they just buy, or they're about to buy some really young, talented wide player, and they've got Lamine Yamal and Lewandowski and Rafinha. Is this a little crack in the door for someone to make another end run around Barcelona at Nico Williams in your mind?
Not in my mind. No. I think he'd rather stay at Athletic than go anywhere else. His heart, for me, has been set on Barcelona for the last 2 years. He needs to go there and play with his mate Lamine Yamal. He's obviously well in with the Spanish national team at this point in time as well. He's a key player under De La Fuente. So I don't think there's any chance for a Chelsea or an Arsenal to come in and kind of snatch him away at the last minute, because I don't think he wants to move. So I'm sure those clubs could offer him the salary that he wants, the kind of recognition that he wants. But I just think this has been Barcelona or nothing. And I think Barcelona will find a way to move some players around, move some cash around, get in the green. However short term that may be, they'll find a way to get into the green and then sign him and register him, and then it will be a balancing act from that point forward. So yeah, it's a shame, because he's a player I would have been excited to have at Arsenal, because I think there is a lot to work with in terms of his skill set and where he could go potentially in the game. But last season told me everything, and it feels like Barcelona or nothing with him. So that's where I am.
Couple other little bits and pieces then, and we can get out of here. But I do want to just touch on this Konaté thing. There was a report from Santi Auna of Foot Mercato that Ibrahima Konaté wants a change of scene next summer when his contract ends. I mean, this is the blueprint, right? Madrid just tell your players to stick it out, and if they want their dream Madrid move, just wait till your contract expires and all the riches and glory of Madrid are waiting for you. I think that's a worst case scenario for Liverpool, to lose another key player for free to Real Madrid. I do wonder if they would entertain selling him. I mean, he hasn't had a spotless injury record. Now he's going to be maybe A, protecting his World Cup place, and B, protecting his dream Real Madrid move. This could be a problem for Liverpool, couldn't it? I mean, Virgil van Dijk surely can't play at the super elite level forever. And Konaté has injury issues, and now he's getting his head turned by Madrid potentially. Is this just a potential little crack in the wall for Liverpool? How significant do you think the Konaté situation is for them, or do you think they'll just throw a mountain of money at him, get him to extend, and worry about losing him next year?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. I'm always reluctant to say that about Virgil van Dijk because he's like Benjamin Button. He just seems to be getting younger with each season and playing at an elite level. I mean, don't forget he's had to come back from an ACL as well in his 30s, and he's managed to maintain whatever it is we're watching now. So I think they will try their best to renew him. It just depends on whether Real Madrid have got their teeth into him or not. And it wouldn't surprise me at all if they do, because I look at Dean Howson, I look at Trent. Konaté easily slots into that back four, replacing a Rudiger, for example. And then they've got Alvaro Carreras coming in from Benfica. So already in 1 or 2 windows max, that could be their whole back four refreshed, revitalized, rebuilt. But I think Liverpool will certainly try and throw some money at him. It just depends how far they're willing to go, because like you said, his mind could be elsewhere with the World Cup. His mind could be elsewhere with a potential move in his sights. He's injury prone. I think they'll go big for Mark Guéhi this summer. That's my feeling. The Arsenal links were nice but unrealistic in my opinion, and I think he suits Liverpool because again, he can play both sides. He's at a good age now where he's ready to step up after a good few years at Palace. So I just have a funny feeling that Real Madrid are going to do it again. I have to be honest, and it would be a huge blow for them. But the optics for me are worse than the actual issue of it on the pitch. I think they could replace him, but the optics of losing another player for free to Real Madrid is worse than how much it would impact them on the pitch, I think. So, an interesting one. If Real Madrid come back this summer with 40 million, for example, do you think they could be tempted by that, or 50?
Yeah, I mean, of course they could, because
if they sell Rodrigo, for example, and they reinvest some of that cash into him, getting him now.
Yeah, I mean, he's going to leave for free to that club if they don't sell him this summer. I mean, unless they think they can get him to agree to a contract, and maybe they put a release clause in it or some kind of handshake agreement about selling him to Madrid. But I think the most likely outcome is he gets sold and they buy Guéhi. But just a little bit of maybe a little crack in the armor potentially there. I keep waiting for Salah and Van Dijk's level to tail off a little bit, and it hasn't yet. And if it doesn't, then they'll be fine again. And going from Konaté to Guéhi isn't exactly a big step down. I mean, I think it is a step down, but I don't think it's a big step down. Having said that, Konaté is going to have to do a lot of running around because Virgil van Dijk is excellent. He doesn't really want to move around like he did before. He wants to kind of sit in his rocking chair and take the ball off people. You have fullbacks who are, he's got a fullback who's a winger, right, that he has to protect. They don't exactly have a shield in Gravenberch. He's not like your traditional 6. So that role is really important. And Konaté does it really well when he's fit. So I do think that that's a potential issue to keep an eye on for Liverpool, for sure. So we'll finish with this, Phil. The summer's taking some pretty clear shape for us now, whereas maybe a week or two ago it was quite murky. I think it'll be Kepa, Mosquera, Zubi, Norgaard, Sesko, and Eze or Rodrigo, right? I mean, I think that's probably where we land. Maybe a Morgan Rogers sneaky something out of the blue. But
I'd be happy with Morgan Rogers. I think he would do the same thing. I think he'd do the same thing as Eze in terms of being the left-sided player, the central player. I'm not sure what Villa's situation is still, although I guess the PSR deadline is coming up. Maybe there's a last-minute trolley dash ready there for someone. But, not as natural as the other two, but a fun player either way.
But so that's it. I think that is it, right? Really just that question mark of who the left wide forward is going to be. And otherwise, I think we know the group. So I guess, let's say that's the group. Sesko, one of Eze or Rodrigo. We'll just say one of them. And by the way, we may get neither, and this changes things. But let's say we get one of those. Sesko, one of those. Norgaard and Zubi. Mosquera and Kepa. Out of 10, where does that land for you?
That's a big window. That's a big window. I would say 9.
Not quite a 10 then.
No, I think I would just want...
Hard man to please. Jeez. Yeah, one more forward on the right to...
No, a more creative player in midfield. Whether that's a young guy. I know Max Darman's coming through, but let's be honest, he's still a little way off. Ethan is not really that style of player. I would just like someone to come in and be a bit of a lock picker in midfield. And
Xavi Simons?
That style of player doesn't need to be him because he'll cost 70 million euros.
It could be Eze. If we get Eze,
it could be Eze. If it's Eze,
role.
for me, it's pretty much as close to a 10 as you can get. But I would also be super happy with Rodrigo. So I would say a 9. But a 10 would have to be like Isak. You know, I don't think you can give a 10 with Šeško, even though I rate the player and his talent. I mean, a 10 would need like some big blockbuster signings coming in, and I just don't think we've got quite there. Although there's none really on the market. So
I would kind of say that if you wind up with Rodrigo and Šeško or Eze and Šeško, I think I'd rather that than just Isak. I'm not kidding. I think that is a better use of your resources and makes us more better than just Isak. And I could be way off because it could just be the case that buying, maybe the best striker in the world that's not named Haaland or Mbappe is the way you get more better. But I don't know. I honestly think you could be better off getting like a Šeško and a Rodrigo or Šeško and an Eze. Like ultimately for me, it's got to be a 10 because I said this and I don't want to be a hypocrite. I said at the beginning of this summer, whether it's Gyökeres or whether it's Šeško, I don't know which of those guys is going to hit, and I'm not going to criticize the club for the one they pick. They just need to get one in a timely fashion, and I think they will do that, and they haven't done it yet. You'd be solving striker with, I think, one of the bright, exciting young talents in football in that position, a position where I think the talent is a bit thin. If it's Rodrigo or Eze, you're getting either one of the most fun players in the Premier League, who I've long admired, who's right in his prime, or you're getting one of the most talented wide players in football who's leaving the biggest club in the world. You're getting a central midfielder that was among the most wanted by some of the biggest clubs, Real Madrid, Liverpool, right, to fill a critical need, and a proven leader and backup from the Premier League in his place. And you're getting a 21-year-old big, strong, talented center back to fill the gap. You have a center back. I would say if you wanted to call it a 9.5, the only thing left would be, could we find a cheap right-sided forward who can come in and spell Saka from time to time? But at some point, like, you'll have to let Martinelli do that, or you'll have to let Ethan do that, or you'll have to, you know what I mean? Whoever the guy is that's left, like it feels like a 9.5 or 10 to me. Now, not all the things we just said are done, so we'll see how those shake out. I don't know what tomorrow's going to bring, but Phil, I mean, at this point, I'm frustrated that we haven't had a Bomba since we've been recording. Right? So they have spoiled us now. We've gone from me doing transfer dailies that talk about whether monitoring is better than admiring, better than bracing, and now we just did an hour and 18 minutes trying to cover all the news.
Yeah, we've got the Bomba shakes, the Bomba withdrawals. You got any more of those Bombas? Yeah.
It's scratching. Yeah, well, I will stay across all that, and we'll have a transfer daily tomorrow. We'll also have the exclusive Brentford expert on for patrons tomorrow to talk about Cristhian Nørgaard and what they think of him. But it'll also go into Mbeumo a little bit. Damsgaard I want to talk to him about because I think he's a really interesting player worth talking about. Thomas Frank going to Spurs. So it should be a good wide-ranging conversation, but obviously we'll focus on the Norgaard side of things. AVP50 is the code if you want half off the first month. Get all the transfer dailies. Watch me on my slow descent into madness as I do that every single day. And then Clive back on a couple of days, so we'll get on the scouting videos and things like that. Phil, appreciate you dropping in here late at night your time, so you can go to bed, but if you do, you may miss another update.
That is the risk I have to take, but sometimes it's nice to wake up to a Bomba as well, so I'm willing to take it, and yeah, pleasure as always. Clive, if you're listening, stay strong. Stay strong.
The mic is home waiting for you when you get back. Yeah. All right, man. Good job, Phil. And by the way, Phil's doing a transfer table series over on the Football Vision Pod with Sam Ty, and it's awesome. I really enjoy it, although he's not as sold on Šeško, so tell him tisk from me, Phil. Didn't enjoy that one bit.
I'll pass on those stern words. And actually, I've spoken to training ground guru about Carlos Cuesta. So that'll be out tomorrow as well. If you fancy a little listen about him and his work at Arsenal, what he actually did. So some good stuff going on at FVP. So come over if you fancy it.
It is a lovely, lovely podcast. All right, we'll leave it there. Thanks everybody for being here. We love you very, very much. Plenty more to come tomorrow and every day, and we'll bring you the news as it happens. So we love you, and we will talk to you after Arsenal 10 transfer window nil.